means time for some game previews. The NFL back in jolly old for one more week, and it's the Rams and the Jaguars. Jags in their old stomping grounds there in England. Cynthia, what are you looking at in this one?
Okay, I'm really trying to set myself up for some humble brags here. So I'm going to start with starting Brian Thomas Jr. I understand that we probably drafted him higher than where he's performed, but he's had 6 games with at least 6 targets. That's tied for the most in the league. And then if you're looking at the first read target rate in week 6, yeah, he had the 12th highest one. So that's up from 26th in the previous 5 weeks. Big deal here. And of course, we saw that touchdown last week. I think that if you look at the opportunity against the Rams, who've allowed a top 3 wide receiver in the last 4 weeks, this is going to be the formula. Come on, Brian Thomas Jr., get in the end zone for me.
I'm going to say you need to absolutely must start Victor Gyökeres. It is time for him to break out and have, I'm sorry, got that wrong. No. These owners are going to be competing on Saturday when Arsenal travels to Old Craven Cottage to take on Fulham. But Kyren Williams, I guess in the game that you guys care about here right now, Kyren Williams has been playing fantastic. He has 3 touchdowns in his last 2 games, 6 games with over 65 scrimmage yards this season. One of the things that's really impressed me about Kyren Williams, or what he's been doing really well, is a receiver out of the backfield. He had a clutch catch last week. All the weeks are running together, but he had a clutch catch last week. The Jags have allowed the 3rd most targets to running backs this season, in addition to allowing a top 8 running back in 2 out of the last 3 weeks. So I think Kyren Williams will make like Bukayo Saka and go out there and score some points.
We could always make this a fantasy football show if we wanted to. I'm telling you, Trevor Lawrence has some sleeper vibes to him. Actually started to play better the last couple of weeks. 19 or more fantasy points in back-to-back games. Now, the Rams, on paper, giving up the 6th fewest fantasy points per game to quarterbacks, but you also sort of look into that, and they have not faced a lot of really good passing games. 4 of the 6 teams they've played so far this season are bottom 11 pass offenses. The Rams have had some issues also with mobile quarterbacks. Now, if Trevor Lawrence, hopefully he doesn't fall down and have to get up and run it in. But we know that he can get out of the pocket and scramble when he needs to, and that could be a thing that opens up some other parts of this offense. But it does look like the Jags maybe have started to figure some things out, and that could cause problems for this Rams defense. Sunday Morning Football continues in London, presented by NetApp. Matt Stafford and the Rams versus Trevor Lawrence and the Jags. Sunday, 9:30 a.m. Eastern, only on NFL Network and also streaming with NFL Plus. Subscription required for NFL Plus. Visit plus.nfl.com for terms. All right, we will keep our Sunday previews rolling with a game that's going to happen kind of on the other side of this wall there over at SoFi Stadium, the Colts and the Chargers. And, Rank, what do you got here?
I love Tyler Warren. I think that he's done a tremendous job coming in for the Indianapolis Colts this season. One of the big reasons why I think that this offense has been so effective this year. He has 370 receiving yards. That's most amongst tight ends, not just rookies. That's most. He also is getting into the end zone. He has been a top 3 tight end in 2 out of the last 3 weeks. And the Chargers have allowed 3 receiving touchdowns to tight ends this season. That's 7th most. That's still pretty significant. I think he's been absolutely fantastic, and I think that continues this week against the Chargers.
Here's the reason that I am actually trying to trade George Kittle away in a league. Mauricio Gutierrez, please check your instant messages there. Anyway, beware Kamani Vidal, partially because he's not playing the Dolphins. And shout out to him for taking advantage of a bad matchup, right? No, I mean, all credit to him. He took advantage of a really favorable matchup for him against a bad defense. This one, maybe not quite as favorable. Indy is a bottom 10 matchup for fantasy running backs. Every running back they have faced this year has had fewer than 80 rushing yards. On top of it, I don't know that you can count on volume just because the Chargers are not running the ball as much as I think we anticipated coming into this season. It's been a lot of Justin Herbert throwing to his 3 receivers. So I don't know that you get a ton of touches for Vidal. So this is one where if you have other options, and if you have Kamani Vidal, chances are you have other options.
I just benched him.
Oh.
As you were speaking,
Sweet.
I just benched him.
All right. But this doesn't come back to me if things
It
don't
will.
work out for you
It will definitely come back to you.
No. Next up, we got the Eagles and the Vikings, and I'm going to be selfish and start this one off and tell you, beware A.J. Brown. This isn't just a straight up, go sit A.J. Brown, right? I don't want to hear, I sat A.J. Brown and I played Isaac Tesla over him. I'm like, don't do that. Don't do that. But things have not been great for Brown. He has just 2 weeks as a top 20 receiver so far this season, 4 games with fewer than 50 receiving yards. The Vikings have been tough on wideouts. They're giving up fewer than 100 yards per game to the position. And like of all the receiving yards that the Vikings have given up to wideouts, DK Metcalf has a quarter of them. He had like one huge game. Everybody else has just been meh or worse. I get it. It might be hard to completely get away from A.J. Brown, but, at least think about it. Tell yourself a story where you come up with another option.
I'm smashing Tesla right now. you just breathe that into existence.
Well, I think in both sides of this game, you have to be aware of the pass catchers. And I'm looking at the Minnesota side of this. Why? I think this is going to be a bigger running game, which just means less volume. And Minnesota's already averaging tied for the 21st most yards per game and through the air this season. And Justin Jefferson specifically, this 42 targets, that's his fewest in the first 5 games in a season since he's been a rookie. And I'm not suggesting, again, there's no Isaac Tesla over him. That's not the situation. Just be mindful of looking for upside elsewhere. Quinyon Mitchell is going to play. He's allowed sub 6 yards per target this season, 6th fewest in the league among corners. So it is a tough matchup in general. And like I said, I was listening to Kevin Patullo. He said he's going to run a lot too. And I think that Kevin O'Connell will also run a lot too, meaning a lot less opportunities in the pass catching game.
So if I take what you guys are saying, start Tesla over Justin Jefferson and A.J. Brown.
Yes, absolutely.
Got it.
Absolutely do that. Coming up, we got more game previews, plus Cam Skattebo continue to tear up the competition. We dive into Giants-Broncos next.
NFL Fantasy Live is brought to you by Applebee's, the official grill and bar sponsor of the NFL.
As the kids would say, that man's got aura, Cam Skattebo, taking fantasy football in the NFL by storm. We'll keep this thing rolling with the Giants and the Broncos. And, Rank, what are you looking at here?
Well, I'm going to look at Cam Skattebo, and I'm going to say beware of him. For those of you that drafted him as a luxury running back, because the Broncos have allowed the 4th fewest fantasy points per game to running backs this season. They've allowed just 2 rushing touchdowns this year. That's tied for the fewest total in the league. I will tell you, though, in our NFL Fantasy Live League, my options are Michael Carter, Justice Hill, and Kyle Monangai. So I will be starting Cam Skattebo. But I'm saying for some of you, it might be a luxury pick. Just beware. The matchup is really tough.
Well, I'm looking at J.K. Dobbins on the other side of this matchup, and it is a big-time must-start, not just because he has 14 explosive rushes, which is tied for the 2nd most, or 100 or more scrimmage yards, or a touchdown in 5 of his 6 games, but also it is Demaryius Thomas Day for the Broncos. So they're going to at least try to put on a big-time show, and the opportunity against this Giants defense, allowing the 3rd most yards to the running back position, but also on outside runs, just allowing so many explosive plays. I think on Demaryius Thomas Day, they're going to have a huge output.
Yeah, it feels like a big day coming for the Broncos in general, for sure. Big matchup in the AFC West between the Raiders and the Chiefs at Arrowhead. And Cynthia, you got a sleeper in this one.
I mean, Michael Mayer, I don't like picking against this Chiefs defense. Absolutely not. But you have to look for what are the options that make sense. And quick passes are what worked for Jared Goff, and quick passes to the tight end specifically. So let's just copy that format. This is a copycat league after all. And we saw Michael Mayer be a guy who had 5 receptions last week. They love to play 12 personnel. If Brock Bowers isn't 100% or not there, obviously Michael Mayer then becomes the subject of those passes. So quick passes to Mayer feel like a good opportunity for the Raiders.
I mean, we forget he's the all-time leading tight end receiver in Notre Dame history. That's not
obviously.
That's not nothing. On the other side, you are starting Rashee Rice. One, because if you drafted him, you've been holding on to him for 6 weeks waiting for this moment. So why would you not put him in your lineup? But more than that, the Chiefs seem really excited to get him back in action again. I mean, this is a guy who had been an absolute target monster in the 3 full games he played last year before getting hurt. And this is not an injury that he's coming back off of. At this point, he's coming back off of a suspension. So I expect him to get back in. I expect Mahomes to look for him early and often. It's a great matchup against the Raiders defense. And if you don't, look, you waited 6 weeks. Why would you not have Rashee Rice in your lineup after waiting all this time? Next up, we got the Commanders and the Cowboys, longtime rivals in the NFC East. And Ray, what you got?
I'm going to say start Jaden Daniels. The matchup against the Cowboys, especially for the quarterback position, is sublime. And not sublime with Rome, but like sublime. The Cowboys have allowed the most fantasy points per game to quarterbacks this season. They've allowed at least 24 fantasy points to 5 out of 6 quarterbacks. The one quarterback who failed to reach 24 fantasy points was Bryce Young, who had nearly 19. So it was still a really good game. So you were going to do it anyways, but make sure you're starting Jaden Daniels.
What I got is Zach Ertz.
Nice.
And that is and that's a sleeper for you in this one. Obviously, no Terry McLaurin. Sometimes you just have to look at play caller tendencies, and Cliff Kingsbury loves going to Zach Ertz, especially when there's any sort of pressure. Now, I'm not suggesting that this Dallas defense is suddenly going to become the highest pressure defense in the league, but I think that smart opportunities to target Ertz are where the quarterback will look, and that's where Jaden Daniels is loving what he has. Oh, no, I ruined it.
Well, I don't cry when my quarterback runs away. I don't get angry at the bills I have to pay.
All I know is that we don't practice Santeria. We ain't got no crystal ball, but we do have some Next Gen nuggets. We got that coming up with our own guy, Next Gen Ken, a.k.a. researcher Kendall Mursky. And, Kendall, you got a little bit more on this Commanders-Cowboys matchup.
Yeah, I want to highlight Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt this week against the Cowboys, who have allowed the 9th most yards per rush to running backs this season. But the main focus is actually the relationship between that and what the Commanders do from shotgun this season. Doing so at the 6th highest rate in the NFL, the Cowboys have allowed the 4th highest explosive rush rate to running backs from shotgun this season. This lines up really well for JCM. Not only is he the first among running backs in shotgun explosive rush rate, but he and Jahmyr Gibbs, they're the only running backs averaging at least 2.8 yards before and after contact per shotgun rush. So over the last 2 weeks, we have seen his snap share improve by 27% compared to the first 4 weeks this season. So with the increase in opportunities and a good matchup against the Cowboys, you really just got to get him into your lineup this week.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like they've sort of narrowed down that backfield opportunity, which is great for us. So
Next Gen Ken.
Next Gen Ken. Appreciate it, Kendall. We'll check back in with you again real soon. In the meantime, as we roll on, Drake May has the Patriots riding high at 4-2 and atop the AFC East. Can the young buck keep the positive energy flowing this week against the Titans? That surprise answer and more when we continue. To dive into some news headlines. If you know, you know, and if you don't, we're about to tell you. Wide receiver injury edition. Let's start in the Big Apple, where Jets coach Aaron Glenn said that Garrett Wilson will be listed as doubtful with a knee injury for Sunday's matchup against the Carolina Panthers. And on the other coast, or I guess I should say in London, Sean McVay has announced that Puka Nacua is officially out with an ankle injury, meaning that the star wideout won't be able to strut his stuff against the Jaguars coming up this weekend in England. And Dan Quinn told reporters that Terry McLaurin will be ruled out for Sunday's game versus Dallas with a quad injury. This will be the star wideout's 4th straight game as a scratch, leaving the Commanders to scramble again at the wide receiver position. Maybe more Deebo Samuel. So, Rank, as we dive into these, obviously a lot of big injuries at wide receiver impacting a lot of folks. If you are one of those people, any backup options potentially to pick up?
Well, I've been picking up Jordan Whittington in any roster or any team that I have Puka Nacua. Last season, when filling in for Puka Nacua, not bad. He had at least 12 fantasy points in 2 out of his 5 games. And, of course, the Rams have the highest target share to wide receivers this season. And they're going up against a team that has really struggled in slowing down wideouts. Jacksonville has allowed the most targets to wide receivers this season, and they've allowed the 3rd most receiving yards to the position.
I mean, it sounds right with Whittington in London. Just seems like it's right. But I'm looking at Trey Tucker against the Chiefs. Again, I hate targeting this Chiefs defense, but I'm looking at who's available on my rosters, and a guy who's shown me that he even has the opportunity to get in the end zone. We have seen it. There were inbreakers. It worked against the Commanders. I'm not suggesting that that's a perfect solution to any of these problems. It's not going to replace Puka Nacua. I'm just looking for some upside for you, and Trey Tucker has the speed to get you there.
Both those guys also in a DFS lineup. I might throw a little Tutu Atwell in there. He doesn't get a lot of targets, but when he does, they always seem to be about 50 yards downfield. So why not take the chance on something
also,
like
take a look at Luke McCaffrey. That's another guy to take.
Always seems to be wide open. I don't really understand it. Anyway, let's get back to our game previews. We got the Patriots and the Titans. I guess a little bit of a Mike Vrabel game going against the Titans. I will say this. If you are one who streams defenses, you should absolutely be streaming the Patriots defense coming up this week. Very quietly, the Patriots right now a top 7 fantasy defense. They've had 5 top 12 weekly finishes. The way to get points from your fantasy defense, sacks and turnovers. Tennessee has given up 25 sacks so far this season. They've given the ball away 10 times. That's a lot on both of those accounts. So this seems like a situation where the Patriots able to make some hay against an offense that's still trying to figure itself out.
And I'm going to say start Drake May, which feels pretty obvious, but we're starting to get back into this territory that we talked about years ago, where people, they might have seen my prediction online where I predicted a 59-0 victory for the New England Patriots. And people are like, well, if there is a blowout, does that mean that Drake May should be benched because he's not? I'm like, don't do this. Because remember, this happened a number of years ago. It was a Thursday. I think it was a Thanksgiving game. Tom Brady against the Lions. Cynthia will remember this. And it was like, be careful of Tom Brady, because if they blow out the light, which they did, but Tom Brady had 6 touchdowns in the first half. So there is no reason whatsoever to bench Drake May at all.
All right, we will move on to, I don't know, we can call this the Dysfunction Bowl between the Browns and the Dolphins. Things kind of not going well in either of those camps at this point. But, Cynthia, you do have something that maybe is working well for one of these teams.
Well, the weather is going to be probably very bad there this weekend. So Harold Fannin Jr. could be a great option for Dylan Gabriel, especially without David Njoku playing. We know tight ends, the best friend of the quarterback, whatever. I don't actually care about that. I just think that shorter pass is an opportunity to not have to go deep in any way, shape, or form in what could be a very sloppy situation. By the way, there's a tease for another player that's coming up here in a second, but Harold Fannin Jr. should be someone, if you are looking for tight ends, that's kind of my theme today, just so we're clear.
Yeah, and if you're going to go with one of the running backs in this game because the weather's not so great, Devon Achane is going to be a pretty good option right there. Top 3 running back in terms of receptions. And one of the things that you're looking at is that will they be able to stretch the ball in this game? I don't really think so. They're going to have to keep it close to the line of scrimmage. Devon Achane has been great as a receiver out of the backfield. He also runs in between the tackles. So despite the weather or anything like that, you should still feel comfortable starting Achane.
Yeah, Devon Achane, I think, is going to be pretty much in business coming up this week. It is time now for Seize the Season, presented by Caesars Sportsbook. And according to Caesars Sportsbook, here are the most likely players to score the first touchdown during this week's showdown between the Dolphins and the Browns. Quinshon Judkins with the best odds, followed closely by Devon Achane, then Jalen Waddle, Darren Waller, who's been a revelation since he stepped back on the field, and then Jerry Jeudy rounding out the top 5. But taking a look at this list, or maybe if you go off menu, Cynthia, who do you think finds the end zone first?
Well, I guess I'm going the chalkiest of these, but Quinshon Judkins, I was going to say that he's a start too, but I wanted to save him for this so that he gets his own shine here, because those inside rushes are an area where Miami has been very vulnerable. And you know who does it the 7th most often? Yes, the Browns. So the opportunity here to have an explosive play to make best use of this terrible weather. Quinshon Judkins, he played at Ohio State. He knows how to deal with this weather.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty wicked. Winds, rain, all that kind of stuff. New users can bet $1 to boost their next 20 bets by 100%. Must be 21 or older. See Caesars.com/promos for full terms. We got more game previews coming up after the break with a barrage of some of the hottest young QBs in the league. Stick around for the secret advice you'll need to get the big dub on Sunday. Bears and Saints coming up this week, and rank your riding with the quarterback.
Absolutely. By the way, thank you for playing the call of my friend Jeff Joniak, who does a wonderful job for the Chicago Bears. I'm going to go with Caleb Williams. It's scary territory for me. From about a month ago, people are like, the Bears are garbage. And now you look at the NFL.com predictions, and everybody's picking the Bears. I'm like, I was imploring Colleen Wolfe, like, can you just pick the Saints so, like, we don't get memed into oblivion if somehow this doesn't work out? But the matchup is great. Caleb's had at least 2 touchdowns in 4 of 5 games this season. The Saints have allowed at least 2 touchdown passes in each of the 6 games this year. The one thing that really gives me hope is that this is a Dennis Allen revenge game. So I'm hopeful that the Bears are going to keep the pedal to the metal and roll through this one, which is why I'm comfortable rolling with Caleb Williams.
Well, if you like pina coladas and getting caught in the rain, maybe you start Alvin Kamara this week. He says that's what he's going to be doing if the Saints ever decided to trade him away from New Orleans. Look, I know the numbers have not been, I was going to say they're not been what you expected, but then again, I didn't have high expectations for Kamara this year in this offense, so he has sort of met them. But this is a good matchup. The Bears against the run have not been particularly great. I am encouraged by the fact we're seeing more targets in the direction of Kamara over the last couple of weeks. It's not what it was earlier in his career, but Spencer Rattler has determined that it is within the rules to throw the football to the running back. So that maybe gives you a little bit of hope. Yeah, I know. It's shocking.
Crazy.
To use him as a flex coming up this week. Interesting game on Sunday Night Football. The Falcons going to Santa Clara to take on the 49ers. And Cynthia, what do you like or maybe not like in this one?
Well, I like Kyle Pitts as a sleeper, and I haven't said something nice about Kyle Pitts in a while. So, I mean, wow, this is going to be crazy. But this is really a pick because there's no Fred Warner, who is the best linebacker in the league. And now that he's out, it leaves a massive Fred Warner-sized hole in that defense. You saw it last week where Cade Otton led the Bucs with a season-high 6 targets and 5 receptions last week when he left in the first quarter. So after that, it was massive. So I'm looking at his 3 red zone targets in the last 2 games after having none in the first 3 and thinking this perhaps could be the way forward for them.
I'm going to go with Kendrick Bourne, The Bourne Identity. Of course, the soundtrack of those movies was performed by Moby. I asked Kendall, I'm like, do you know who Moby is? He's like, yeah, I've seen How I Met Your Mother. I'm like, I can't with you sometimes. But we do love the production. Kendrick Bourne has given us at least 140 receiving yards in back-to-back games. Actually, I think the number was like 142. It's a tough matchup. The Falcons are really tough. This is not ideal. However, when you look at some of the wide receivers that you're probably going to be searching through, we were doing a segment about this a moment ago. Kendrick Bourne is a really nice option.
He and Mac Jones found something. We'll see if it's Mac Jones or Brock Purdy coming up this week for the 49ers. Meanwhile, we'll move on to the Panthers and the Jets. And I see people trying to make McMillions a thing. Is that going to be a thing? That your look on your face says no. No.
No disrespect. No, we're not. No, I'm just kidding. No, he's been playing really well. Ted McMillan was, obviously the first wide receiver off the board in the draft this year. I know that talking to my buddy Steve Smith Sr. before the draft is that we were apprehensive about it, to say the least. But he's really performed well, and I can't really take anything away from him. 48 targets this year, a high percentage of the receiving yard share with the Carolina Panthers, and now he's got a great matchup against the Jets. He is a must start every week. I feel like he's now earned that status. So somebody that I was a little cautious about coming into the season has well performed my expectations, at least.
Yeah, he's starting to get more recognition after what he's done the last few weeks. I'm going to tell you to start Justin Fields. This feels like a bounce back. And at the risk of jinxing anything, it can't really be worse than last week, right? I mean, it just can't, as bad as the Jets' offense was against the Broncos. Now, the Panthers actually have been tougher on the run after the first couple weeks of the season, but they are giving up yards through the air. 250-yard passers allowed in back-to-back weeks. Hopefully, Justin Fields can sort of use that to get things going in the running game. He says he wants to be more aggressive in throwing the football, so that is a positive right there. So I got to think there's a chance for him to come back and do something after what was just a miserable week last week for him in London. We're going to go down to the desert for the Packers and the Cardinals, and you're not all that optimistic about the running game, are you there, Cynthia?
I sometimes think that we think about the Packers defense and you close your eyes and you think about Micah Parsons and then you remember, oh, they're also good at stopping the run. So I don't want anything to do with the running back situation for the Cardinals. If you're looking at what's going on, I mean, fewer than 85 scrimmage yards in each game this season, not great. And Green Bay has allowed the 5th fewest points to the position this season, along with allowing the fewest rushing yards per game overall at 73. So this is just a really good run defense, and we've had a bunch of injuries. We've seen a lot of different things. The quarterback situation has been injured as well. So I just stay away, find a different running back.
Yeah, not a lot of spice there in Arizona, but they do have hard seltzers. Well, as a man, I do drink hard seltzers. I think that's fine. I have no problem with it. I also have no problem with Matthew Golden. Coming into the draft, I was just talking about Ted McMillan. Matthew Golden was my favorite receiver coming into the draft, and what we saw last week was a pretty good indication why. And I know the one thing that's so tough with these Packers receivers is that you don't want to get into a situation where you're chasing the points. You're like, okay, well, now it's Matthew Golden. I get that. I understand the apprehension. I really do believe that Matthew Golden is going to emerge. We've seen Romeo Doubs kind of take the mantle for a little bit, but I really believe that we're just starting to see the best out of Matthew Golden. I'm firing him up this week against the Cardinals.
Love his opportunity this week against Arizona. We are not done here on NFL Fantasy Live.